All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Heroes of the Storm Summer Championship live from the Monster Energy DreamHack Studios in Stockholm, Sweden. We now have a little bit of a shuffle going on here at the desk, as you can already see, but the core essence still remains the same. We're here to watch some Heroes of the Storm, and although the first game or the first series that we've watched was a little bit one-sided, I'm pretty sure that we have more surprises or potential surprises upcoming. The next series is going to be X Team versus Negative Synergy, so it's basically China versus Australia, if I'm not mistaken. Jehao is still with me. Good looking and smart as ever. We see a lost face here though. Todd, how's it going and where have you been during all these months?
It's going well. I've been mostly focusing on StarCraft because that's what I was asked to cast recently. You know, I'm a caster of 2 games, so at the end of the day, it's up to the people that make tournaments, right, to tell me what I cast. But happy to be back doing some Heroes here.
On the desk.
A lot of good teams, and we already saw some good plays. We saw some Tracer, which I was happy about, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the games.
Definitely, and moving from the caster desk here into our cozy round of chairs and analysis, Wolf, how happy were you with MVP taking the first win?
I mean, obviously they looked really good. The first game was somewhat worrisome. They didn't look as powerful in that first one, but the second game obviously looked really good. They had like a 4-level lead for the entire mid game, looking really strong. And they're one of the favorites, no doubt, to win this tournament, even though they didn't win the OGN Super League. And I think if, like Sake said, if they get their motivation back up to 100%, then they're one of the big favorites to win. They are the defending champions, after all.
Yeah, and once again, we're going to take a look at the road to the Summer Championships. I mean, we have so many different regions competing for the big prize money and, of course, for all that glory. On the bottom of the screen, you can see all the major regions. You can see North America, China, Korea, Europe, and last but not least, of course, also North America. Really cool to see those are sending 2 teams in, whereas the minor regions, where most of the underdog teams are coming from, actually only have 1 represented here for the Summer Championship. But nevertheless, I mean, X Team in particular coming all the way from China. They are a team that's been around for a very long time, but hasn't really made it all the way to the top, Jehao.
I mean, I think one of the things that we saw is that they're one of the teams, I guess, when we talk about their performance, it might not necessarily be as impressive as other teams in that region. So going up against like team like Negative Synergy, is there some type of drawback to not performing as well as some of those other top teams?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, on the other hand, we have Negative Synergy, a team that was also present at the Spring Championship, Wolf. Is there anything that comes to your mind when thinking of the Australian team here?
You know, I did cast a lot of their games at the Korean Spring Championship, and they looked really strong, you know, as one of these minor, you know, teams from one of the minor regions. But I think they're definitely the underdogs going up against X Team. I've watched all of X Team's games several times. I think they're actually a really underrated team. And the big upset, of course, was that EDG is not here from China, and X Team is here instead. And after X Team came, EDG's kind of dissolving and players are going different places and things of that nature. So it was like a big upset in the Chinese scene. But I think X Team is underrated, really powerful, and definitely one of the teams I expect to probably make top 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, X Team, as you mentioned, they were basically the reason why EDG disbanded. They were the nail in the coffin, so to speak. Todd, is there anything from this Chinese scene that you remember like being very reminiscent of? Like, are they aggressive? Are they, just like in StarCraft, if I recall correctly, right?
Yeah.
They're always an aggressive meta scene.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what we've seen every single time. You know, in particular, again, in that last tournament that I cast on Heroes of the Storm at BlizzCon, they love to play so aggressive. They have a lot of niche picks. And it feels like, even though there are sometimes some similarities between the Chinese and Korean meta, the Chinese just have like this kind of, you know, craziness, that little spark in their play that always makes them very difficult to play against. So, and also, going into this match, there is always the question that arises, how familiar are these teams with each other? And usually I would expect the, I guess, the non-Chinese team here in the Australian team to maybe have studied their opponents a lot more so than for X Team to have studied the Australian team.
Definitely. I mean, on paper, when you are considered to be the weaker team, you do a lot more preparation. You watch all of the games. You want to be the one coming out on top and make a name for yourself, for sure. Let's actually take a look at the groups that we've got going on here in the Summer Championships. I mean, today, as we mentioned, we're going to kick things off with Group A, but later during the day, we're also going to take a look at Group B. But for now, MVP Black here all the way at the top. Renovatio 0-1, unfortunately, and it's going to be interesting to see whether X Team or Negative Synergy is going to follow in the footsteps of MVP Black. Also, do keep in mind, guys, that this is a double elimination bracket, so even the team that's losing this series is going to have another chance to redeem themselves, actually. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Only when we get into the second group stage later on, every loss pretty much matters. And as we can see here, of course, the Australian team, Negative Synergy, they are getting ready. And wouldn't it be cool to get the first upwar of the tournament, JL?
I think it's definitely something that would definitely draw a bit of excitement to the tournament itself. And I think in the group stages, in this particular scene right now, is the best place for it to happen.
Right, definitely. I mean, it's hard to predict how these dark horses are going to perform. We didn't really see any pocket strategies coming out from Renovation earlier. They played it fairly standard, fairly safe. Do you think that's something Negative Synergy is going to follow suit in?
Well, one thing I want to point out is when you look at these players, the first thing probably everybody knows is 11-0, 100% win rate. What does that mean? They come from a region where no one touches them. They are the best of the best. And that means sometimes it's hard to get better because if no one can touch you, if no one can challenge you, how do you set your goals? You know, how do you improve if you're kind of isolated in a region where no one can take matches off of you? It's tough to improve, so they have to do a lot of studying, a lot of watching. As Todd was saying earlier, I think the underdog team in a situation like this is always going to be studying China. There's tons of replays of X Team out there. They played through an entire tournament series, the GHC. So I think that coming to this, I think they will have some pocket strategies, and I think that they probably have some really sneaky picks kept in mind because these groups have been out for a while now, so they've had a lot of time to look at exactly who they're up against, who their first match is, and that's the thing you can prepare for the most.
Yeah, there is always two ways to look at this, though. On one hand, you can say, you know, like maybe they're not being challenged as much, but at the same time, they're dominating their scene. Like they didn't lose a single map in the qualifier to come here, and they just power through very easily. So it means they're pretty darn good at this game.
Yeah, and as we mentioned earlier, I mean, X Team, they took down some of the most prominent Chinese teams like OMG or EDG, as you mentioned, and they were considered to be one of the few rival teams for the Korean overlords as well, just like MVP, for example. So X Team, although not very well known in the Western scene, they are one of the strongest teams, and many would actually claim that they are one of the big favorites for the title.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out about this team as we kind of go through these players is their picks that they like to do. They're very kind of set in their ways, the way they draft, and I think it's somewhat easy to counter. You know, Paradise, for example, is the player we just saw a few players ago who plays Thrall almost every single time. So just something to keep in mind as we look at kind of like the overarching group that is X Team.
Right.
I think he makes a great point. I mean, we saw this when we researched the drafts, when we've taken a look at the drafts over time. And as he said, there's a lot more data on these Chinese teams than you're going to find on the Australian team. So highlighting all of those points, guys, I think this is something that could definitely play in favor of Negative Synergy.
Yeah, their performance to qualify for here, like only finishing in a pretty big tournament behind MVP Black and E-Star, that's pretty impressive in itself, considering how many very strong teams there were in that tournament. So I would say, obviously, you know, I think everybody's going to agree that the Chinese team is the favorite, but I definitely feel like we shouldn't underestimate Negative Synergy here.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, Renovation pretty much showed us how a weaker team on paper can still hold their ground and not go down with looking ridiculous or anything like that.
That first game, actually,
yeah.
like they were in a good position up until the big fight, where they were level 10 much earlier. Like they were showing some good things. It feels like if the stars aligned a little bit better for them and they had won that fight, they would have been actually in a very dominant position on that map. They would have had 2 tributes to 1.
Taking the word of Sake, though, he said they were just scouting them out. I feel they never wavered. I don't think.
Of course he said that, yeah. You know, we were warming up a little bit, like letting them throw in a few punches, and I don't know about that.
Let's actually take a look at the pool of maps that we've got going for this upcoming best of 3, and which Battleground, of course, is going to be the first one. We see Battlefield of Eternity being played first here. That is not a common choice because it's a very snowbally map at points, so it can also end up being very risky, even for the better team. If they get behind by some miraculous reason, it's going to be very hard for them to catch up. What do you make of this, Wolf? Do you like Battlefield of Eternity as their first pick?
Battlefield of Eternity is a map that's a lot more popular in Asia than the other regions, and China in particular. If you watch like a best of 3 series, you're pretty much always going to see it. And you watch a best of 5, you're always going to see it. So it's a map the Chinese are very familiar with, so I'm not too surprised that we see this early on. And I expect them to do well. And it's kind of a scary thing for Negative Synergy because they're playing on the map that China is so good at and practices all the time for their first map. And first map is always momentum giving.
Right.
So
This could be a case, though, of studying them and seeing a lot of their games on this map. And maybe Negative Synergy thought, well, X Team, we saw a lot of their games on this map. Obviously, they're pretty good, but if you get a huge sample to study from, maybe you can find weaknesses, very clearly by watching some of these VODs. You can be like, well, maybe we could have done that better than what these guys did against them and beat them this way. So.
My favorite part is you talked about the possible snowball effect. Battlefield of Eternity is one of the most active maps. I mean, there's 2 lanes, and then there's just like this huge spot in the middle where fights are going to happen. And if you make one misplay, that can be the difference between an Immortal versus not. And it could be a huge play for whoever wins that. So I think the potential is there.
Yeah. Talking about Immortals, though, in the past, especially on Battlefield of Eternity, we've seen some pocket strategies, some secret heroes that have been unveiled on this map in particular, naming Artanis, for example, thanks to his amateur opponent talent level 1. Do you think we're going to see similar secret heroes unveiled here?
Well, one of the things that I want to point out for X Team in this case is because I feel like their drafting has been kind of obvious and very apparent, and I think personally really easy to draft against. If they deny Thrall from Paradise, that's when we might see a different bruiser type hero come into play. Maybe it's Artanis, something like that to race the Immortals if they don't want to go for kind of a pushing, more ranged-oriented comp, a poking comp, because that's kind of how this map goes. One team has the race, the other team has the the poke to try to win those fights and then win the Immortal.
Right. Keep in mind also the Chinese teams, they're known for their aggression. They never back down from a fight, pretty much. What better map to play against them than a map with 2 lanes where there is not really any rotations that you should be scared of? Sure, like when the Immortals will come up, you're gonna have to go there and brawl a little bit more, but. I mean, as long as you kind of, stick together, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah. How strong would you rate Chinese teams and maybe even Negative Synergy as well in terms of sticking together and team fight coordination? Because it's not so much about split soaking and split pushing, is it?
I mean, Todd couldn't have said it better, the aggression that we see out of them. It's something that we see on the North American side isn't quite as often, but a team like Naventic studies a lot of the Korean and Chinese, and we see that type of aggression kind of come out, but it's nowhere near on the level as we saw in the Spring Championship, the aggression that comes out from those Asian teams, especially the Chinese teams. So we see a little bit of it there, but we see a lot of it, especially when we saw that just a few months ago.
I think getting a good early game and some sort of lead is very important against people who play very aggressive. If Negative Synergy are able to do this, it definitely could go very well for them. If they start falling behind, though, like game over. It's going to be almost impossible.
It's really hard because not only is this map very focused on, fighting as a unit, but it's also, due to its size, very predictable, right? You cannot really go wrong. There's not many spots for the enemy team to ambush you from or to hide at. So, as we mentioned, these early stages of the game are going to be particularly important for both sides. And Wolf, one thing maybe about Negative Synergy, what kind of attitude do you think are they going to bring into this first draft, which is, of course, going to take place very soon, guys? Are they going to go, like, super crazy, try something different, or are they just going to go standard and see how the waters feel?
Are they going to have a good synergy?
I find I haven't talked to them myself personally about, like, this what strategy they have planned, but if I were them, I would be looking for targeted bans towards Paradise and Misaka, the 2 players that kind of have the most predictable, smallest hero pools. It's hard to take someone out like Yao Yao, who's really good at ranged. He's got a very large hero pool. So I'd say target the bans towards Paradise first. Get rid of Thrall. Take Thrall yourself. Just don't allow him to have that. And then work at who's going to be doing the wave clear. Looking at Misaka most of the time. Yao Yao does split savants with him a little bit. But I think just try to do targeted bans in the draft. This first map is kind of unique because it's a 2-lane map, so lane pushing and things of that nature that X Team is really known for doesn't come as much into play. That's later on we go into our larger maps where that's going to be a bigger factor. But I think draft against X Team. Don't try to do something secreted or pull out a pocket strategy, especially not in game 1, but just try to draft against their somewhat predictable style.
Right. And you mentioned target banning might be a solution to actually find a good remedy against the onslaught from X Team. Jayo, is there any role in particular that is worth banning against these days?
I mean, this is one of the maps where we see a lot of priority to Tyrande because she's able to put that hunter's mark. And we've looked at the drafts traditionally. That's been the hero that kind of shows up the most as far as target bans or target picks. And it's something that we don't necessarily...
damage amplification from
the damage amplification from the mark. So that's something that we sometimes see a little bit targeted a little bit more on this map.
Yeah, anything else, Todd, that comes to your mind when it comes to maybe taking away something dangerous that's especially good against the Immortals in the middle of the map? Something like Tyrande, for example.
No, I think personally, like if I, for example, was on a team that was about to compete against a team like X Team, I would just look at their most picked heroes, the ones that they are best at, and probably try and target these ones in particular. And I think that's a pretty good plan. And I believe, by the way, that this is Sachin, who was born in Korea but moved to Australia in 2004. So they've got a little bit of Korean blood on their team, man.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with Korean blood on your side, that's for sure. And great point you make there. I mean, none of these teams, although they are considered to be weaker or minor on paper, but they all have a professional background. Most of them have a coach, most of them have an analyst, and of course an organization to back them up. So not only the players, but the organizations as well, they're very keen on making a name for themselves in the Heroes of the Storm scene, which is still a fairly young one, right, Wolf?
Yeah, I think when you look at this, when you look at the dominance they had in their region, 11-0, and how much data there is for X Team out there, so much. And as I mentioned before, they didn't win China. They actually got 3rd place behind Black and E-Star, so they had to fight through the losers bracket, for example, as well. They had a ton of games to show. There's a lot to study, and I think that they will have a really good strategy going into this. They're not going in blind, and I don't think they're going to take the series overall, but I do think that they're going to show us some really smart plays. And if in-game they can get an early lead, maybe they could take a game. It's possible.
Also important to keep in mind is that, of course, with one loss in this series, it's not over for neither of the teams.
That's
so
right.
especially if you are considered the dark horse, taking one map out of such a dominant team and such a big name can be a success that might actually help you in the future series.
I just want to point out one thing. Okay, we've talked about pocket strats. I don't think Renovaggio was prepared for Zeratul. And yet MVP forced them into a fight that they probably weren't prepared for. And then we saw the second game. Who was second ban?
Zeratul, right. Yeah.
Do they fall into the same pitfall? That's the problem that I worry about. If you play it safe, is the other team thinking, well, we're going to be aggressive instead? We saw that out of MVP Black, and there was no question in that match from the get-go that Zeratul was going to win that game, and he did. And I fully agree with what you're saying. If I'm coming into this, I'm with that. But when I look at that previous series, I'm like, do we want to be that team that goes up against like somebody that we didn't prepare for?
MVP Black was the alpha team, all right? Zeratul, you're playing against Rich. He's getting, how many solo kills did he get in that game? An absurd amount. Okay, I don't even want to count. So when you've got a player roaming around doing like that, I do kind of see the fear in that targeted ban, and this is kind of how Heroes of the Storm works, and it's a really beautiful game because of that. You see the individual player skill on one hero, you get scared, you have to ban it, but it does show a sign of weakness for sure. And I completely agree with your sentiment there. You ban him instead of maybe the better meta hero to ban in that slot, then you're kind of, it's almost poor drafting in a way when you're the fear ban. It's not even a targeted ban at that moment, it's a fear ban.
It was MVP Black though. They have like some of the flashiest players and most skilled out there for sure. But yeah, you touched on the Zeratul ban. For map number 2, you think if there would have been a map number 3, they would have banned Tracer?
Tracer first, Zeratul second, sure. Either way, I love what we saw at series number 1, but obviously we're talking about series number 2. Just the fact that there's so much on the board, I think Heroes in its spot right now. A few months ago, we weren't having this argument of what are they going to choose, and now it's just blown wide open. And I think this is what makes this tournament so much more exciting than things that we might have seen in the past. This is the best Heroes of the Storm action I think you could possibly get right now.
And if you take a step back and even just watch the Spring Championship, you can see so much improvement, so much more finesse in the drafting in particular. Of course, also a new flavor being added by the new heroes. But it's really fair enough to say that Heroes of the Storm is at its peak at the moment in terms of finesse, drafting, and mechanical skill.
I feel like we have the largest hero pool by far that's
right
in the meta that we've ever had. And we just saw
on
Tracer,
any role,
like, for example.
any role, pretty much.
Yeah. And when we saw last season, everything was kind of set. You could almost cast a draft with your eyes closed. But now I feel like the teams that are going to shine are the teams that end up with a larger hero pool, you know? And that's why I worry about, players like Paradise, for example, who's an incredible Thrall player. But if he doesn't get Thrall, sometimes you have to wonder, is Sonya going to live up to his name? So I do think that we're in a really cool place with Heroes of the Storm right now where, you don't necessarily know who's going to be locked in what spot.
Just to give you guys a brief update on what's currently going on, there seems to be an individual player having problems with the Technics, the computer or whatever. So, we're just toying and playing a little bit with the nerves of the players there as well. And we're getting more and more excited as the game goes, or as the waiting pause goes on.
Yeah, what about, I wonder, do you guys think we're going to see some crazy picks here? And, I mean, we probably will at least see a couple. And which one would they be, if you had to guess? In terms of, heroes that we don't get to see too often?
I mean, if we're talking about Battlefield of Eternity, I mean, I feel like people don't stray. They just want to fight, and if they can't fight, then they poke. And, you know, you see a lot of Greymane, you see a lot of Li Ming, you see a lot of these heroes that kind of contribute to both. But if there is anything, I don't think we're seeing a Zeratul. I don't think we're going to see a Tracer. The one hero that I think that if anybody's going to show this weekend, call me crazy, is Rexxar.
I will.
Rexxar.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
I have an even crazier one, and I know I've actually talked to several of you guys about this. I think this is the only map where we could see Chromie. I think it's going to happen in this series. Definitely not. I know a lot of people disagree because people are like, well, Chromie can't kill the Immortals, but the poke potential that she has, if you have vision, if you have a good tank up at the front, spotting is just very, very powerful. I don't think we're going to see it in this particular game, and I don't think we're going to see it often this turn, but it's like the one pick that might sneak in that freaks everybody out. It is possible, in my opinion, that we could see Chromie on this map.
I have set it up perfectly. You know, everybody's going to wait for it to come. Like, if it comes, we're going to be like, yeah, Wolf said it. Personally, like, I don't know if it's particularly like a super crazy pick, but I would love to see some Dehaka. It's like one of the recent heroes that I've played a bunch, and that, like, on big maps, I just love the mobility.
Yeah.
Like, you still kind of die pretty quick for attack. Like, I didn't have, like, too many great games with it, but I feel like the mobility and, like, maybe somebody could show me, you know, how to play it very well. It's kind of same for Tracer. You know, Tracer, I feel like he's one of the heroes that has some potential, but he's extremely hard to play, kind of like in Overwatch. And then we just saw MVP Black using it. I think it was Kyocha, and really showing some good things with it. So sure, MVP Black is a very good team, but maybe some of these teams, you know, they can show us the way on how to use some of these heroes in the competitive.
Speaking of showing the way, in our region, it's you only pick Tracer if you have Tassadar, so you get pre-shielded and dive to the back. They had no Tassadar and still dominated. I think that's something that it might allow teams to breathe a little bit with their hero choices. So.
You know who I would like to see? A support hero that we haven't seen in a very long time is Lieutenant Morales, especially on Battlefield of Eternity.
Oh, she's still in the game?
Yeah, I think so. Last time I checked. No, but in all honesty, I think on this map in particular, you have so many obstacles that you can hide behind. But without further ado, guys, let's actually get some serious drafting going on between, of course, X Team and Negative Synergy.
Are you surprised that they banned Thrall?
I'm looking at this, I'm like, wait, are the team names at the top, they're on the right side? It's just a bit surprising. Would not have expected to see the Thrall ban right away, considering that I think that's one of the key heroes for this team, but...
He's got a new favorite champ, man.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. And Greymane, of course, thanks to his Worgen form and his ever so powerful basic attacks, definitely a good first choice for X Team to go on Battlefield of Eternity.
Greymane, if there's a hero that makes plays more than I think just about anybody outside of Illidan, who we probably won't see much of this weekend, it's Greymane. I absolutely love Greymane, and on this map, I feel like he gets more value on this map because of the way the fights take place and the manner in which they take place, because sometimes they can draw out depending on who wants to commit. And when one team commits and you have Greymane, it's already in your favor. I think he's that strong.
By the way, that was a big smile here for a second. Who smiles this much after their opponents pick? Who has this much fun during a draft? Like, this is confidence, if anything.
You could argue maybe that Negative Synergy were expecting something like a Greymane, because let's be honest, it's not rocket science to go for a Greymane in order to boost your damage against the Immortals and for the team fights, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you press W on Greymane, you're going to do a lot of damage, okay? We do see Negative Synergy grab the Korea of 3 weeks ago pick, the Sonya Rehgar. Obviously, Rehgar can roam around this map like very, very quickly, and Sonya is a great hero versus the Immortals, does a ton of damage. Not too surprising to see that, but I feel like we might even be seeing some Korea influence with these choices here. And this does allow the Uther pickups, so that's going to allow Greymane to be in the front lines and secure kills. So definitely a scary choice there.
This was the haunted house sound we just got here in our ear. And as Uther stats were highlighted.
Yeah, Uther, of course, when you have Greymane diving into that back line, it allows him, if he gets in too deep, it's like, wait a minute, don't worry, I've got a Divine Shield for you. But Arthas has been one of the biggest changes lately in the fact that we have Arthas now in the meta. Please buff Arthas. Maybe they were a deciding factor in that.
Yeah, I mean, he has seen a lot of changes, and so far only Anub'arak has been in the spotlight, right? Thanks to the rework that he's received. But Arthas certainly not a hero to be neglected. You're right, J-Hal.
Yeah, he's 6.1% pick rate, one of the lowest currently, as we see the Sylvanas ban come down. This is, again, I think one of those bans targeted towards Misaka and Yao Yao, so I think this is a smart choice. Arthas also has one of the lower win rates, and X Team has used him a lot, sometimes to great success, sometimes not so great. So I'm a bit surprised by this pick. I think they're showing us something different here.
What do you think about heroic abilities when it comes to Arthas? With the Immortal on his side, Sindragosa can actually do a lot of work.
I think it's going to really depend on what Negative Synergy builds out at the end of the day, but one of the cool things about Sindragosa is it makes the Immortal, even if you don't have that many shields, like if you don't get the best one, it's like, well, this is 4 times as good as it was before.
Imagine you get the Immortal and then you seal Sindragosa up. You use that and you freeze all of the structures, they don't shoot anymore. I think, yeah, it's a great point you bring up, and I definitely could see that come into play.
Yeah. But then they would probably need another frontline or another warrior to back him up, because without the Army of the Dead, Arthas is a lot less resilient.
I'm just really curious if these teams are going to prioritize Tyrande. They already picked up 2 very strong supports in Rehgar and Uther. Tyrande puts out a decent amount of damage, you know, especially depending on how she's built. But the fact that you can put that Hunter's Mark in if you're looking to try and burst down the Immortals, I feel like that's still in play, but Kael'thas still on the board, Li Ming still on the board, so Kael'thas already picked up.
So some of their core heroes usually would be, I think, Uther, Thrall, and Li Ming. And now Uther was picked by the opponents, Thrall is gone, and only Li Ming's left, so...
I think ETC might come in here. Obviously, ETC pairs up really, really well with Sonya's auto attacks because of his Rockstar passive. And can create some good engages. Obviously, very good versus Greymane if you can knock him and get him away from the supports. So just something that I wouldn't mind to see in this place. They're burning a lot of bonus pool time here, a lot of tough decision-making clearly going into this one.
Let's also not forget that Tyrande that we mentioned earlier is still ready for the taking. Especially for X Team, I think it could actually fit in quite nicely, because 2 supports in 1 team for Greymane is pretty much like the dream.
Yeah. They grab Muradin, which obviously is good for attack speed slows.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like with Li Ming, I don't know how X Team goes. What? This is something that I saw when researching the draft that they ran Abathur on Battlefield of Eternity. You've got this, right?
Okay, so Abathur is for vision. He's always going to slow people. He's going to have his mind set up all throughout the entire map. So X-Team, like the Chinese push meta, as everyone likes to call it, they can set that up a lot easier when they have all these mines over the map. They slow down pushes and movements and rotations.
Yes.
And he gives an extra shield for Greymane in the early game. The Tyrael they pick up here is going to be just for dives. We're going to see dives with Arthas, Tyrael on the front line. Divine Shield goes down to Greymane. He's never going to die, and he's going to be doing massive, massive damages. They can disengage and poke to finish everybody off.
And what is better than a Greymane against the Immortal? Hey, guess what? A copy Greymane who's also helping with even more increased attack damage against that Immortal. So I cannot stress enough how much I like this Abathur pick.
Are you guys surprised? I mean, obviously with the mines there, Tassadar lends to a little bit of vision to help clear that up. Are you guys surprised that all that's not Tyrande fitting in there to try and help? Or do you think Tassadar is literally the counter to help against the dive and to help against the vision?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it will give them a lot more sustainability, you know, leading up to the fight and into the fight as well. So
I think
I like it, I think.
I think they've kind of given up on the race to a certain extent with this. Like they're just going to be poking and trying to go in and take these fights where they know that Abathur is up against them. So this is a response to his mines, so they can clear it up so they can take that fight. And also, obviously, when you have Abathur in the early game, when the clone is either on cooldown later on or just not even available, it's kind of a 5v4 fight. So I think they're going to be trying to just dive in and fight or poke and slow things down and get a kill.
Strategic. Falstad off the board. No Mighty Gust to say, hey, wait a minute, we don't want to deal with that just yet. So a beautiful play right now.
I was thinking we were going to see ETC instead of Muradin because he synergizes with the attack speed. Obviously, you can kind of be a little bit more aggressive with him when you're going in for the invades. I guess Muradin is the safer choice, and it does have the slows versus Greymane, but I don't know. I would have liked to see an ETC here from Negative Synergy.
Yeah. By the way, you can keep talking, Wolf, and let us know in a quick resume, like who's going to win this game 1 between Negative Synergy. X-Team. All right. Todd, what do you say to that?
There is something I do in StarCraft that's always making silly predictions and looking like a fool. I'm going to continue here. I'm going to say Negative Synergy.
You can look like a superstar, though, if it comes true. Here we go. Jayho, do you agree with Todd or with Wolf so far?
Well, Todd and I have developed a little bit of a bond. I don't know if it's some sort of mental thing, but I'm on Negative Synergy side.
All right, cool. I'm actually going to jump in for my buddy Wolf here. I think that X-Team is just too experienced and all in all too confident, especially after having such a wonderful qualification, that they are definitely going to take this first game for sure. At least I hope I'm not going to look like a fool here. Anyway, our casters are equally ready, so let's actually drop the ball to Kalaris and Gillyweed to take us to Battlefield of Eternity.
Thank you very much, guys. Drop the ball. We'll kind of pick that up and run with it, I think, for the most part. X-Team versus Negative Synergy about to go down on Battlefield of Eternity. And as you well point out, X-Team is not the normal team to actually go for more conventional meta picks, and they have got quite the wild comp.
Man, these guys love off-meta, but let's introduce our teams and then we can get into it more.
Indeed. Over to the left-hand side, we have Negative Synergy, with Desperts playing Rehgar, Tassadar going to be played by Benjamin, Ninja will be on Kael'thas, Sashin is on Sonya, and finally, Robodoba will be on Muradin.
And in the red, playing for X-Team, we'll have Paradise playing Tyrael, Yao Yao on Greymane, Elegant playing Arthas Tau on Uther, and playing Abathur will be Misaka. So yeah, X-Team are not really ones who have ever been super in the meta. One thing that they loved to do after ETC wasn't really working out for them in the early stages of Gold League is they picked up Diablo and were wrecking with him so much that forced out some targeted bans for him later on into Gold League. So I love that we're seeing now Elegant on Arthas. I can't wait to see how that goes for them.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree that this is probably just going to be their kind of what our analysis panel said, probably a go-to of more of a team fight-based comp. I mean, the thing is that even if the clone is down, Abathur on Greymane is one of the single strongest compositions that we're actually even seeing in the meta across multiple regions right now. We're seeing it in Europe quite a bit. We would have seen it at Tours if some of the teams hadn't been kind of banned out of that for the most part, but we will start things with a pause, tactical pause. Probably not. Probably.
Well,
just
there's a Chinese team in the region, so that's what's
true.
going on. They like their pauses.
Yeah.
No, not sure what the issue is, guys, but we'll get right back into it as soon as we can. But yeah, you mentioned the Abathur, and there's something I wanted to point out with them that you kind of alluded to. First of all, that a Greymane clone is just amazing. Teams have talked to me a lot about how difficult a double Greymane is because he still gets Greymane's passive, which is once you're in Worgen form, 40% extra damage. And you can be in Worgen form because you don't care if the clone goes down. So you've got these two Greymanes, which means that you have a lot of damage for the Immortals. But also, with picking up Pressurized Glands, he's already going into more of that style for Symbiote, which means that later on, they have a lot of melee, which will make Hive Mind very effective if they get all the way to level 20.
That's true. And also, something that is interesting to know at the very beginning of this game is normally at level 1 for Greymane is Wolfheart, Wolfheart, Wolfheart all the way.
All day.
But Viciousness being taken to start things off, which is increasing his Inner Beast by 4 seconds and then does get reduced cooldown once an ability actually hits, which is not the most common go-to. So Yao Yao being a bit yo-yo, crazy all over the place. I'm loving it. That's okay.
That's one thing that I love about the Chinese teams is they have a lot more flexibility with their talents. Any talent is viable given a certain situation, whereas with a lot of the other regions, you see just very standard picks all the time, like you said, Wolfheart over and over and over. But in this instance, if you are fearing maybe a Sonya Muradin up in front, but you want to try to keep that Inner Beast going, you can toss out the Cocktail. That keeps it going and gives you a little bit longer to maybe get healed back up before starting to go back into auto attack range.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think, obviously, you've been able to cast a lot of the Chinese region for quite a while, being covering some of the Gold League and stuff like that. What do you think about X-Team's chances? I don't even mean going into this series. I mean, like, throughout the day and moving forwards.
So X-Team is a very interesting one. Like I said, they're off meta, but Wolf really highlighted the fact that they have a pretty big problem, at least in Gold League, with limited hero pools.
Okay.
And a lot of that falls to Paradise. He is the Thrall player, mainly. And then also we've got Tau. He plays a ton of Uther. And then even Elegant was playing a lot of ETC initially. But as we can see, Elegant is starting to switch things up. And First Blood!
Yeah, we caught the very, very tail end of that as Sonya does go down. So Sashin will be First Blood, falling on the side of Negative Synergy. Good start from X-Team. And they coordinated that well from the tail end of what we saw, as I said.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest strengths for X-Team is they have a lot of synergy and coordination. And when Elegant says it's time to fight, they will always be there with him. It's never any doubting of his shot calling when it comes to the team fight. And that's what helped them beat teams like Edward Gaming. Even when they would get behind early game, they have great late game team fighting. So even though their hero pools are limited, that's what's going to help them get farther. And if they have been able to change it up like this, if these are actually heroes that they have been able to get better with, then I think they could have a very good chance in this event. China
being China, just don't even care about the wave clear. They're just going to stick around in the bush, look for a pick-off, try and get Arthas that lockdown to start things up. And they already got on towards Kael'thas. That's a lot of damage going on towards him at the very beginning of that. And Paradise will have to move away as Desperts was chasing him for a moment. Greymane coming in from the left-hand side on towards Tassa. Will dimensional shift away, though.
Yeah, they're trying to basically like split up. They've got one warrior who can go into the backline and push people back while allowing the rest of the team to follow the other warrior. And Right now, of course, they are a little bit squishier, and as they get further in, we'll be seeing them continue to try to make big picks like that. But here comes the rotation, and Yao Yao going into the Greymane form so he can put a lot of damage onto Alarian.
For Arthas as well, level 1, it was Frostmourne, Eternal Hunger. So he's actually trying to build up the potential for them to just burst people down.
Yeah.
More and more damage. That's what we're about in China. All about that, even with the soak up towards the top. So they've done quite a bit of damage to their opponent's Immortal, but they do want to push them off this for now, 'cause against a 5v4 situation for the most part, you don't want to be racing in that instance with a slightly less leveled Abathur position.
Right, so here we have Negative Synergy, and of course they have a much more standardized composition, but they have a good ability to race here, especially like you said, with Abathur not having the clone just yet. But a Howling Blast hits Robodoba, and yeah, they're just trying to keep them pushed off while Greymane gets them to the halfway point.
And it shows the focus again. When I look at the talent, I keep coming back to the talents, but there's so much to talk about already from the Chinese guys.
Yeah.
They're not going for mine build, they're going for more team fight orientated. So they're just slowing this down in mid. They'll sit around, defend, and for as long as this is happening, Negative Synergy is losing experience because Abathur is doing what he can, and that's actually a potential blow up on towards Sashin once again. He goes down second time. Sonya will fall.
Yeah, I'm just so excited to see Elegant on Arthas because he likes like ETC Diablo, those very aggressive warriors.
Yeah.
So seeing Arthas and being able to go in with Howling Blast and allow his team to jump in right after him and be as aggressive as he wants to be with the slows. And because of the kills that they've gotten and the way that they have set this up, they're going to win that first Immortal phase.
Yeah, very, very well done. Really calculated by X Team overall. And again, they're a level ahead because of Abathur. Not to mention as well, is something that actually goes neglected, is once you actually win the Immortal, you actually get quite a chunk of experience for winning that Immortal. So it's not bad in the slightest when they've kind of calculated these things out, 2 kills with that level of advantage.
And they want to get ahead and stay ahead, not only because they're the aggressive team, but because Negative Synergy have heroes who have a crazy kill potential and brawling potential as they start to beef up. Sonya, Muradin even, and then looking at Tassadar too once they get all of the shielding talents and start to get more bruisery, but also Kael'thas. They're still going for the Gravity Crush, most likely, and picking up Energy Royal at 4. They're probably going to go for Gravity Crush at 7. Pair that with Sun King's Fury, and into the later game, they will also have that burst potential. So X Team want to make sure they deal irreparable damage before Negative Synergy can really level up to that point.
Yeah, I really like what you'd say about that. I mean, it's very, very clear that X Team has that slight advantage earlier on, as long as they have these calculated fights going down. Will be Wizened Duelist for Greymane as well.
Yes.
So he is going full ham on those kills, and if it scales out of control for them in the early game, it makes it harder for Negative Synergy, as you mentioned in the later stages.
And because they do technically only have 1 support, but they still have shielding from Abathur, and with probably Soma transference at 13, that'll help try to keep Greymane alive too, so that he can feel safer and stacking.
They actually have a lot of shielding. I mean,
Yeah.
Tyrael's able to shield out.
Yes, that's true, of
Uther's got
course.
his protective shield as well. So anybody that's going to be focused down, there is the potential that as long as Abathur is initially on them, which is normally on a Greymane moving forwards anyway, he would be in a very, very safe spot and doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, and think about the potential for Greymane there. Divine Shield to bail him out, Sanctification to bail him out. This is something we saw E-Star do, and they were able to take down MVP Black with a composition like that, with an Uther, a Tyrael, and a Greymane.
The aggressive maneuver through to the hard camp here, making sure that Negative Synergy isn't going to be taking that at all. And of course, they want to make sure that if Negative Synergy was trying to time out that hard camp with the Immortal coming up, they could invade that and try and steal it if they had just finished it off and were sitting around waiting for it as the Immortals are about to pop.
Well, they didn't find them, and so Negative Synergy are still going to be able to get their Bruiser camp timed really
Nice.
well with the Immortals, just like that. X Team even waiting a bit longer, though, really wanting to make sure that they force Negative Synergy off the Immortals at some point.
And this exacerbates even further because they have Abathur. Like, if they put those in separate lanes, there's 2 huge threats in lanes, which cause Negative Synergy big problems through this middle fight as well.
Yeah, that's such a great point. It's a lot of trouble for Negative Synergy. And now they're going to try to at least maybe get a kill. There goes a Gravity Lapse, good cleanse by Tao to allow Paradise to escape to his Eldruin. And Arthas clearing up the Bruiser camp before they really start to move in and posture around these Immortals.
Still another fight going down. And we'll see Yao Yao getting away from that for the moment with lunge, and let's see how Sashin's going to be able to do some damage. Just a little bit of a tickle, sending that forward towards the top. That's actually a potential blow up on towards Arthas. He will fall. That's a great pickup there for negative synergy. That's exactly what they need, considering the threats that still loom in the top lane, and they need to race this out.
Yeah, that's a big threat for them. Also, the experience. X-Team has kept a very solid lead, even given that kill that Negative was able to pick up. They're still down, getting close to the heroic abilities. So they're trying to do what they can, but X-Team still being aggressive, knowing Arthas will be back very soon. They have Abathur, they have a lot of damage, and if they could just stall this out slightly longer, they'll have heroic abilities, and that should be the end of this.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for Negative Synergy to fully anticipate how X-Team's going to take these fights very, very soon. Sashin's still up to the top, slowly doing some damage up there, but I think he needs to defend this location for the moment, shut them down, especially before level 10 hits. This is the perfect opportunity for Negative Synergy to try and take a fight. They're just going to back away. They know they have a little bit more time on their side.
Well, yeah, X-Team knows that they pulled everybody down to them. They pulled absolutely everybody, and they're the heroic abilities. They're all online and lots of defense capabilities between Army of the Dead and Sanctification. I kind of wondered if we were going to have Syndragosa, but Elegant just wants to be as tanky as possible so he can be right in the back, disrupting as he can.
And Arthas is more tanky than he ever was. Even, I think, back to the days of the Tychus Commander Odin way back when. But for now, Elegant is actually quite far up the front. He hasn't popped his army. Yeah, yes, he will.
There they will go. The zombies starting to go in. And later on, they're going to have, with their ability to have flame strikes, they can try to take out those zombies, but for now it's at least keeping Elegant nice and healthy, and he was able to basically just sit around with all of negative synergy while his teammates took out the Immortal.
It's perfect. I mean, it's very difficult to get through Arthas in that spot, and also because he does have a little bit of extra damage eventually available to him with Eternal Hunger. He is annoying. He does hit hard when you activate Frostmourne. So now they're going to take themselves an easy fort, and they're opening up this lane quite heavily here. Negative Synergy is under a bit of pressure, but they do have that level 10s just kicked in.
Yeah, thankfully they do have that. The second Immortal phase can always be really scary for a team that's behind. If you don't have a heroic abilities, it can be game-ending when you've got a very strong Immortal. This one's pretty strong, and Negative Synergy are going to start to go in for the fight. Robodoba up in front, getting slowed down by Elegant.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for them to really get on towards this. There goes the Sanctification to try and keep them as alive as possible. Robodoba still under a lot of pressure here, and we're seeing a great little flank out there as Muradin will fall down. The Divine Shield did go on towards Yao Yao, so they kept him alive. And he's going in once again. He's quite low. Sonya will be able to pick him off, though. And that is going to be a 1-for-1 at the moment. They're all quite low. I think they need to get out of here.
Yeah, Ancestral Healing didn't connect before, but that meant that they had it up for Sashin, who can now go full ham on the backline. Misaka, though, up here in the front as that clone of Arthas. We talk about Greymane clones, but an Arthas clone is something that we've seen before. Like, I'm thinking of Cloud9 versus Tempo Storm way back when they had the double Arthas, and you just have so much zone control with all the slows.
I mean, even in the NA regional, we see our trees actually cloning Muradins and just going forwards and Temple Towers of Doom. You know, it's actually really strong to have that kind of front line. One thing I do want to say about X-Team, though, is that Abathur, during all of that time, was still in top lane. So there wasn't full efficiency out of their potential soak during that situation, but they were still in partial control of it, especially since they only lost one during that situation where everyone was very low.
Yeah, I will say the team fighting for X-Team, they used a lot of heroics early. They used Sanctification early, and maybe even seemed like Divine Shield, although they didn't overlap, and that's the key. Yao Yao got taken out, which means that the stacks have been reset for Wise and Duelist. Part of this, of course, you have to consider is nerves. And while you see X-Team and say, okay, this is a strong team, they come from a strong region in China, it still is their first time competing internationally. Sure. Whereas Negative Synergy, they've been here before. This is the exact same roster as they had at the Spring Championship. So they know that they can bring it to X-Team, and that's what we're seeing them do.
Paradise getting away in a very precarious direction, but he will manage to get away. Impressive stuff overall, as he's still looping around in the middle there, actually, just buying some time, I suppose. Arthas is up to the top, cleaning up that easy camp, and will capture that for them. So once again, as they just continue to put pressure on these lanes, but Abathur is still sticking back quite far during all of this.
You know, in losing people in that fight, they did distract Negative Synergy for a long time, and that keep is pretty low. It's down to below half health. So I think X-Team are feeling very fine with that, especially because they now have 13-2. They're going to steal away the Bruiser camp. They're looking for the fight.
Yeah, very, very aggressive. They've actually got a Shrink Ray here for Uther as well, so if anybody actually gets out of position, it could be cut down very, very quickly. Sanctification will secure them this position, and they'll just move away for now with, of course, our cloned Greymane poking Just a little bit.
So that's Sanctification as well as the Ultimate Evolution being used here. Immortals will be spawning in a few seconds, so there'll be some time where they don't have those, but Avatar was used too, and that's a fairly long cooldown to be able to bait out. And with these Khazra in the top, that means that the better positioning at the start of this Immortal fight will be for X Team, especially since Negative Synergy, again, are down a crucial talent here.
Yeah, I like that they took away their hard camp as well, though. I mean, you invade that location, it means that your lanes are not being pressured during this entire time, whilst you're just focusing all of your attention towards the mid lane. Even if it was, it would be Abathur. And they're going to take it during this window?
Perfect.
X Team.
That's so cool. They get the forward one during the time before the Immortal phase, and now there's another one. Just constant pressure versus Negative Synergy, and that's in the top. The lane that's already pushed, a lane that has a keep already pretty close down. They're pushing Ninja back, just looking to defend once again so that maybe they can send somebody up to the top.
And difficult for X Team to get the lockdown on towards Kael'thas towards the bottom left, but at the same time, difficult for Negative Synergy to gather any kind of momentum here at the moment. The top, if they're not careful, if they stick around here for this long, they will lose that keep. It will go down. So we're going to see Yao Yao actually going quite far there, choosing to actually get the priority on Kael'thas, and he looped around that bottom little section very, very quickly onto him. Kael'thas had no way of being able to get out.
Oh, and there's going to be more deaths too as they're body blocking Sashin. She uses the Whirlwind to be able to get away. Ancestral Healing connects, but Sashin is not out of it yet. They have shielding from Tassadar. It looks like finally he'll get back through that mid gate. They do have a well there to try to tap back up, but with Kael'thas down for a few seconds now, and that lane finally getting pushed all the way. X Team have bought the time that they need to finally finish off this Immortal phase.
Exactly. It's do if you die if you do, and you die if you don't. Yeah. Unfortunately, like you have to clean up that. But obviously they lost one, so they can't really rival towards the middle. Actually, that's kind of a capture. Pretty good capture there on towards the front against Arthas, and he will fall even despite Sanctification being used. That's a big win there for Negative Synergy, despite me not thinking they were going to get one pick off.
Yeah, and he didn't use Army of the Dead too, so I think maybe he thought he was going to stay alive there and then didn't have it, or it was just barely not off cooldown, I'm not sure. But with that, that is precious time for Negative Synergy. They've been able to push people back, and they're finally burning down Belath, which is a great move for them.
Yeah, very much so. So mounting some kind of comeback. At the same time, it's a race, and they will take this. So they at least take away a little bit of the shield there from X Team's Immortal, but they're running the risk if they are actually to get on. They can't get on towards this fort now because they're kind of regrouping. But if they were, that could have been completely game-threatening with another keep potentially going down. So at least they've got this fort stable down towards the bottom.
I wonder what X Team's going to do. I was wondering if maybe they're going to push on to the top and just try to get that keep, but might feel a little bit too risky. They're still at the same talent tier. This Immortal is not super shielded, so it's not like it's as much of a concern. So it looks like they just want to escort it as far as they can and maybe look to win a team fight. But Negative Synergy, this is the time they want to get into a team fight too, and they're going for it. They want to try to take down X Team before they get to 16.
That was very aggressive, especially since Sanctification just came off cooldown, so that will be used. Sashin under quite a bit of threat. They do have Ancestral Heal, so they can save someone. But Robodoba, he's very far away from Rehgar, even if he was to try and get saved. They get him! Muradin goes down. A great little chase there from Yao Yao up towards the top. Ancestral Heal popped very early on towards Sashin. That's going to cost Rehgar trying to get up there to that position to save some of his team who was out of position to begin with.
I can't believe they've kept Yao Yao alive. It's going to be tough for Paradise, though. Sashin's going to take him down along with him. A great gravity lapse from Ninja, but not enough to save his teammate. And now Elegant going out with the Howling Blast will be enough to take down Ninja too. And only Tassadar is left. All this time, Misaka has been pressuring the top keep, and the bottom keep will fall.
Yeah, that was Negative Synergy taking a fight. I'm not even sure if they should have just sit back, poked the Immortal, and then kept their keep alive probably during all of that, not taking the fight. They would have been down a talent tier, but now they lose the entire game. I don't know how they're going to be able to slow this down. That is going to be GG for game at number 1 here, as Misaka is going to be able to finish that off in his lovely little clone. And, well,
Elegant.
That's 1%. Is he...
Misaka, oh my god!
Oh my,
Abathur slaps!
No!
Oh, Tassadar shielding! Hello?
How did that not finish?
I love Misaka so much right now. Like, I don't even, that takes a lot of heart.
You know, actually, Tyrael can't finish this alone. I don't know where he's going. Like, I mean, they've got such comfort on the other side.
Oh, man.
That's ridiculous.
What? But yeah, but what do you do as Negative Synergy? She was like, I guess we'll go take out a fort?
Gilly, the amount of times I cast and the amount of times I end up on 1%
on the 1% course.
It's always me.
It is always you. It's either a blessing or a curse. I'm not sure.
It's a curse because I said that's GG, it's over. And then that happens every single time. Instant replay. Let's take a look
yes.
once again.
Let's look at this.
Oh my. So I don't even know what to say. This is.
He tells him, he's like, I got this, guys.
If he'd have
stuns.
tunneled in on the other side.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't know. Like, maybe.
There were just so many stuns. Like, he came in and
Yeah.
it was insta-spear, insta-death. They're going to go for the fight again and try to take out X Team. They know that this is such a difficult place to be in. Divine Shield hits Yao Yao and Ninja's been taken out. If they continue with this, it should be enough. The body blocking for Sashin is just impossible, and Sonya will get taken out too.
Yeah, this is the insurance policy coming in and paying dividends at the moment. As Kael'thas was so far forwards during that fight, they don't even care about Muradin. They're going to go to that core and finish off that 1% with quite a lot of shields, admittedly. But still, that was kind of crazy.
I like Misaka's just keeping him from backing as long as he can. Benjamin's like, hello, guys.
Hi.
Here's some shielding. I'm going to do what I can, but it's me versus the world right now. And X Team.
Oh, it's Misaka again. Don't die, Misaka. Stay alive. Yes, Abathur. Glorious victory for game number 1. X Team will take it after what we should have thought would take it like a few minutes ago.
Elegant was kind of shaking his head. They're like, calculated. It's fine. They did it. They got the win, and it looked pretty convincing for them, too. It was really still 11-8. So the kills were quite even, but being able to control the area around the Immortals, it really worked out so well for X Team.
Their pacing and flow from step to step to step, from it being those team fights to even just soaking those lanes, the control of those camps and sending them down the lanes when they were at exactly the right time, and even the invasions on the hard camp. Those were very good.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite play from them from this, but they still showed a little bit of nerves, and Negative Synergy knew when to fight. They knew when they needed to be doing things, and they were going for it. So it wasn't maybe as one-sided as I believed that it could have been.
No, I think a part of that does come down to the fact that Negative Synergy technically had a fantastic draft.
Oh, yes.
A fantastic draft. But for now, we are going to head over to the panel to hear what our draft later on is going to be, as well as their thoughts on game number 1 for this series.